Hello, sinners. I just wanted to drop in and tell you that My Horror Confessional is now part of the Ghoulish Podcast Network. In addition to producing podcasts, Ghoulish is also a publisher. Ghoulish Books has published dozens of horror books that have gone on to receive award recognition and even film adaptation treatments. Browse their spooky offerings over at ghoulish.rip and use discount code CONFESSIONAL for 10% off your order. And remember, ghouls, live spooky, die spooky. Hello, everyone. My name is Miguel Myers. Welcome to My Horror Confessional, where every week I'll have a guest come on and talk about one classic horror movie that they haven't seen and why. We'll discuss the movie, the actors, and probably get off topic quite a bit. Once I believe that they have properly atoned, I will absolve them of their horror movie sin. Today in the confessional, we have Kent Morton. Kent was a former film student turned veterinarian. He's a father to a beautiful dog named Mutie. He's a previous rat dad, and he is a co-host of Vet Med for Idiots by Idiots. So, Kent, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I hope I'm a decent guest for you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. So, let's talk a little bit about your background here. Well, so first of all, Mutie. So Mutie is what kind of dog is Mutie? Because that's the reason I had you on the show, is just to talk
Yeah,
about
well,
him.
I mean, yeah, that's actually the most interesting thing about me is my dog.
Uh,
I should have her down here with me, but I'm in the basement. She can't get down the stairs on her own because she's a disaster of a dog. She's a mutant. She's a French bulldog. She turns 9 this year,
oh, okay.
which is like terrifying for me as a rat or as a rat dad. Apparently she's a rat now. As a dog dad, because I mean, she's just a big disaster. Her
Yeah.
full name is actually Super Mutant Alien Baby. When I named her, I was playing a lot of Fallout 4. Actually, I'm currently now also playing a lot of Fallout 4 because the show was awesome. So
I was just about to ask you. I think I played maybe 10, 15 minutes of one of the games. I don't even remember which one it was. So I don't really have any reference for that. But I was gonna ask you, what did you think of the show?
the
Because I haven't seen it
show
either.
the show does a great job if you're a fan of the games, like giving you a reason to watch, but it also does a really good job of kind of rolling in new viewers so you don't have to have played the games
Okay.
ever.
Yeah.
Because I mean, God, like the first one came out in 97, I think.
Oh shit.
Yeah, it's old. I was in high school.
Not saying anything there because so was I. So was I. And so one of the reasons I think I'm really excited for today's episode is because you are a vet, you're a veterinarian, and
Yeah.
the movie that we're just going to say the movie we're talking about. The reason I'm having Kent on is to talk about Willard from 1971. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
So you've never seen it. So is there a particular reason this movie passed you by?
Um, because I don't have an excuse to have not seen it, actually. So I think in 2002, one of my really good friends was obsessed with Crispin Glover, like one of her favorite actors. And she was like, let's watch the original and then go see the remake with Crispin Glover like later. And I didn't see either of them.
Okay.
So you sent me the list of here's like a bunch of movies that were on there, and originally I kind of was leaning towards the Crispin Glover one, but I was like, I should probably see this one first.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
So do you find a lot of intersectionality between like your vet work and your love of horror movies?
Sometimes it can get in the way. Like it's if you ever any scene where a killer uses a scalpel blade, like is those things are made to like cut 3 times and then they're too dull to do any more work.
Oh,
So
really?
like you have, yeah, like they're super, super sharp. And like, there's the scene in Pet Cemetery where Gage like severs Judd's Achilles tendon with one, which is one of,
Spoiler.
a little spoiler alert.
Yeah.
It's a 35-year-old movie. If you haven't seen it by now, then anyway, like
Oh, really?
Gage
How would you have
severs,
liked somebody spoiled Willard for you?
I would have been like, why haven't I seen that movie yet? I have no
Okay.
idea.
All right. So Gage, go.
Yeah, he severs Judd's Achilles with a scalpel blade, which why did I think I forget what the dad's name is. All of a sudden I'm blanking on it. Why did he have a loaded scalpel blade just like hanging around his house? Like stupid shit like that will kind of like make you upset. Or there'll be someone prepping for surgery. They'll do it wrong. So sometimes, even there's a lot of crossover in those things where um hell, even Doctor Strange, the movie, the first one with Benedict Cumberbatch, where he's surgically prepping at the very beginning. I'm just like, no one cares. And especially the writers and directors, and it doesn't change anyone's enjoyment of the movie. But like, you couldn't cover Benedict Cumberbatch's face with a mask. So there's a scene where he's doing neurosurgery without a mask, and it's like that's not OSHA approved, man.
Yeah.
Like, so there's annoying stuff like that. There's always things where like Jaws. I mean, Jaws is actually really the victim in that story. Same with Cujo. Like most creature features, the creature is actually more of a victim than anything else. And it's
Okay.
like Cujo, that whole story is avoided with probably like a $37 rabies vaccine.
Ahead of
Um,
time, right?
yeah, ahead of time.
Yeah.
Um, you can do post-exposure treatment in isolation. If he shows signs, then um, if you didn't have a neglectful owner, the whole movie is avoided.
Yeah.
Story. Jaws, the real villain is end stage capitalism, right? Because like
The
they just wouldn't
mayor.
shut down the town. Yeah, the
Yeah.
mayor and was like, no, 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 we got to keep everything open. So, but
All
yeah,
right.
I mean, Jaws was just swimming around doing shark things. Like, so Bruce, sorry.
I gotta go back for a second. Did you call it a loaded scalpel?
Yeah,
Is that what they're called? Is that a legit
yeah,
like
you load it.
was that how
Um,
do you load a scalpel?
there's there's like a little like I said, those blades are only God, I wish I had a scalpel handle here. I could show you.
Wait,
There's like
so the scalpel isn't one thing. It's kind of like there's just, like I said, there's a scalpel handle, and then you change out the blade.
change out the blade. Yeah.
Oh, I was not aware. I'm not a psychopath. I've never held a scalpel before.
I'll bring
I'm looking
one
at you.
next time I'm in Texas.
Yeah, no, please don't.
No,
Uh,
there's like a little like out poaching, I guess you would call it.
okay,
Where you like slip your blade on and you slip it off. Yeah.
yeah,
So it's called loading a scalpel.
okay. So, to your point, so my wife Hillary, her father was a retired doctor, and he would tell her all the time as well that it was annoying watching movies because
Yeah.
like a lot of shit that would happen, he'd be like, that's not what would happen at all. Like somebody would get knocked out with one punch to the back of the head, and they're like, no, you would just be like maybe concussed or something like that. It just wouldn't knock you out completely. Or if you do get knocked out, you're gonna have brain damage.
Yeah, it's really hard to actually like knock someone out. I mean, our
Yeah.
skulls are pretty thick for a reason. So like you see people like it's like or like snapping a neck. Like, do you have any? I mean, our necks are designed to not snap. It takes and you see some guy like run up behind someone just like it's like
Yeah.
it takes a lot of strength.
So Bruce Lee
I
isn't just snapping those dudes' necks like one by
Bruce
one.
Lee
Just
probably
yeah,
could.
good. Okay. So
I
you were
I
talking
have
about
had to remove heads of
from
animals.
what?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
like
do you want to
are
get
you a taxidermist as well?
no, 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 no. So if there's legal requirements if a animal is expected of having rabies, and you actually have to send the head in. So it's too expensive to send the whole dog, and I don't have the equipment to remove just the brain. So you send the head. I guess we should probably put like a it's kind of a gruesome thing, I guess.
Oh, like a trigger warning or something like that?
Yeah, like
Sure,
trigger
sure.
warning.
I'll put it on. I say I'm going to put it on. It's
Yeah.
not. It probably won't happen, but I mean, sure. But so let's go back a little bit here. And you said that you were a film student, former film student.
Yeah.
Maybe you're an aspiring film student, whatever the case may be. So, talk to me about that. So,
Well,
how far did you get? Like, did you always realize you wanted to do film, or?
oh, I have a bachelor in fine arts in broadcast and cinema.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And so like I do have a degree in it. I graduated university in like I don't know. Okay, it was right before the Great Recession.
2008.
Um, yeah, but I think it was like 2006. I'd have to like actually do my math. But like I lived in Michigan, and Michigan got hit harder because all of the auto companies collapsed first.
Yeah.
Um, so and that's like Michigan's entire uh economy is, the big three. Um, so those crashed around
What
2006, and
what's
so
the
it
big
just hit us
three?
earlier.
Is that like
Oh,
Ford,
GM, Ford,
Chevy?
Chevy,
Oh,
or
Tim
Chrysler.
Allen. Oh, that was
Yeah.
Tim Allen was the third
Tim,
one.
yes. Tim Allen is from he went to Western Michigan University. I think he's from Saginaw.
Okay.
Wait, why am I claiming Tim Allen? He sucks
Yeah, I
though.
don't, yeah,
Yeah.
he's a piece of shit. A
Yeah, no, he's
former
terrible.
cocaine dealer.
Yeah.
Allegedly, no, he went to jail for that. I could say that.
Yeah, no,
Fuck you, Tim
you
Allen.
can find his mugshot somewhere. And
Yeah,
yeah, like he sucks now.
yeah. So, but as far as being a film student, did you grow up loving film, like, or did
Oh
that come
yeah.
to you? Okay. So was it in your family, like, was it horror movies specifically, or was it all genre, the whole
I think the
everything?
only person in my family really like who's responsible for like my love of horror is probably my dad.
Okay.
Like I tell people jokingly that my dad probably wasn't that great of a parent, because I remember seeing like Stephen King's Sleepwalkers in theaters when I was like 10, and that has like
What's wrong with that?
it has like weird incestuous cat people sex.
But you're a vet right now. What's the problem?
Yeah.
You want to, it has something to do with you wanting to watch cats have sex or something. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. Theriogenology is not my theriogenology is repro sex or repro science. Uh,
Yeah.
it's not my thing.
So
But
your dad
yeah,
was responsible for it?
yeah, my dad's really the only other person that liked horror movies in my family. Like when I was really little, I saw like Night of the Living Dead, and he introduced me to The Exorcist, and uh, Jaws is my favorite movie, and he's responsible for introducing me to that. I had a big love of sharks growing up. Like they always fascinated me. So like Jaws was also, kind of like just non uh accidentally my favorite movie
Okay.
because yeah, like I just had an obsession with sharks, and so sharks were in that movie, so I loved Jaws. I love all four Jaws movies actually.
Yeah.
Like
I've only seen the first one, but I heard like 3D is crazy.
they're
But
none of them are good.
yeah.
Except for the first. The first
Yeah.
is like a great movie. I know you're not a huge fan, but it is like, it's
No, I think
actually
it's
like a well shot movie.
Jaws, the original is, yeah, it's one of the best horror movies ever. It's like one of the best movies ever made, let
Yeah.
alone horror. It's a great movie. I just don't have an affinity for sharks,
Yeah.
like, or I just, so I'm like, I could watch it or not. I did. I'm sure I've told this story before, but Alamo Draft House here in Austin, Texas, they used to do this. I don't know if they do it anymore. They would go out to a field and dig up a trench, huge, basically man-made pond, lake sort of thing, and they'd they'd show Jaws on the water.
Yeah,
And
I think they do it on 4th of July.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So like,
It's a bucket list item of mine.
so I've done that. And then we also did it one year because we have a pool in our backyard, and we did it in our backyard as well, to just watching Jaws in our
Oh,
pool.
that's so
We're
cool.
projecting it, and all that sort of stuff. So
Yeah,
yeah, that's
that's
fun.
awesome.
I like Jaws, but did you have you ever had a chance to work on so I don't know anything about veterinary medicine, if it transfers over to marine biology or whatever, but like, have you ever had a chance to work on a shark?
Uh the I've never worked on a shark. I've worked on a lot of exotic
Treat, right?
animals.
Treat. Okay.
Yeah, but there was a question. There's the North American veterinary licensing exam. There was a question about ultrasounding the abdomen of a shark. Um, I
Okay.
almost walked out of the test and was like, I'll just be a stripper.
Why?
Like,
Why? Because you didn't want to.
because I was like, what the hell is this? Like a shark abdominal ultrasound? Like, we learned this because there's so many like pet sharks in the country that we need
Yeah.
to learn about
I see what you're
shark
saying. Yeah,
science.
yeah. Well,
Like,
you
this
never
is
know.
ridiculous.
You have to be able to X-ray it to see if it's a license plate or if it's a body, if it's a little boy.
That it's true.
Yeah. So how do you go from being a film student and lover of horror movies to veterinary medicine?
I actually so okay, well, I graduated when I was like 25. Um, and I worked in advertising for a little bit after that. And then I really wasn't doing anything. Like, I had quit my advertising job and went back, and I was working in suites at the Palace of Auburn Hills, which is where the Pistons used to play basketball.
Mhm.
Um,
Wait, so I'm sorry.
and
Suites is like a.
like,
Are you saying you're like, I'm in cars, or like I'm in like the recycling business or whatever? You're in Suites, or the name of the store is called Suites?
oh no, it's like luxury boxes, I guess.
Oh, Suites like that. I
Suites,
got you. Okay, okay,
yeah.
cool.
Suites,
Yeah,
I
yeah, I got you. I
think.
got
I'm a doctor, not a
you. Speller.
speller. Um, so I was just working in the suites at the palace, and I was like, this is the job I used to work in high school. Like, I have a college degree, like I should be doing something different. Typical, like, millennial in his 20s. So me and my partner at the time actually got hooked up with a program, and I can't remember the name of it, but we got our travel visa, a working visa, and moved to Australia for a while. Um,
Australia.
yeah. So that's and Australia's wildlife is just really cool. So like, I've, had a conversation with a kangaroo. Um, like, it ate out of my hand and I was talking to it and it would nod its head back, and I was like, this is weird.
You
So
felt
I
like
just got
Willard?
really, yeah, kind of. So like, I just kind of like, I was like, you know, um, when I get back to the States, like, originally I actually did think maybe I go to get my marine biology degree and spend like the rest of my life, like, become a doctor of marine biology and then, work on Shark Week or something. And I ended up like working for a veterinarian when I got back, and it was like, I really enjoy this, and I like being around the pets, and it's it's a it's a real people centric job. Like, a lot of people will be like, well, I wanted to be a veterinarian because I don't like people, but I like science. And I was like, you really need to be able to handle people to be a veterinarian. uh
Well, yeah, because I think about it, like you you're part of somebody's, like, probably the worst day of their life, right?
yeah,
When they
no,
have to
absolutely.
put
And
their
I
pets
mean,
down.
yeah, and those times, like, it's awful, but they can be really rewarding, and you make some of your best clients and some very meaningful relationships with people through that.
Yeah.
Not to totally bring down the
No,
mood.
I no, I that's fine. So, So you decide you want to become a vet, and what is that like? What's the process there?
Oh, so well, I have a bachelor's degree, but you do not need a bachelor's degree to become a veterinarian.
Yeah,
But my bachelor's isn't in um like anything science related. It's a fine arts degree, right? Like, so I just started taking my prereqs and getting my science classes out of the way. And then I applied to vet school. I didn't get in the first time, and then I got in the second time. So it took quite a while for me to become a doctor, but I've been practicing out of school now for about 10 years,
yeah, that's
uh,
awesome.
pushing 10 years.
Yeah, okay. And one of the reasons, like I was saying, is I'm so excited to talk to you about this movie. One, you're a vet, and also you were a rat dad, like you said, right?
Yep.
So how does is it just like were you always into pets and you just wanted a rat? Like how do you come across to be a pet dad? To be a rat dad?
Um, so I actually used to be terrified of rats. One of
Yeah, I think
my
with good cause.
well, I mean they're great pets though. My friend in vet school, like she found a rat and she named it Mongo because she thought it was a baby mongoose. And so um she like found this abandoned baby rat and like took care of it and raised it. And uh one day we were hanging out and she was like, no, uh you have to play with my rat. And I was like, okay. So like she like kind of forced me to get over my fear of rats. I mean I mean they will rats can bite. I mean, there's all sorts of terrifying rat scenes in movies, which we'll get to in. But yeah, that's all like real that can happen. But as far as pets go, like they're very social critters, um, and like they're much better than mice too. Like mice are kind of dicks, but um rats are really close to like humans as far as like anatomically. Like, oh, I mean, every species is somewhere related. Like there's a lot of anatomical similarities between every species, but like rats and humans, like we also as far as like hierarchies and whatnot, like they'll have like their own little social structure and whatnot, and they're very social creatures. And so like my one rat would regularly ride on my shoulder, and like my little niece would come over, and she would bring her friends because they wanted to see my rats, and they were great with kids, and like I'd let them crawl on them and everything. And I mean, they're
Yeah,
just great pets. You have to feed them uh properly. And yeah, there are a lot of like cleaning because they do just like crap everywhere and pee all over the place, so like you have to like clean up a lot. But apart
is there
from that,
anything as like a
like
rat diaper?
no, no,
All right,
we could
then it's
invent
out.
one.
I'm out.
No,
Yeah, the
that's
lucrative business of rat
right.
diapers. All right.
You keep them in a cage, Miguel.
Yeah,
They're
but
not
you
just
said it right
running
around
around
on
your
your
house.
shoulder.
Yeah,
So did it poop and pee on your shoulder?
on occasion.
That's a
It's a little
diaper worth
teeny, teeny little rat turd.
it. And the pee, you just gotta change the whole shirt.
Change the shirt. Peace sterile.
Yeah. Okay. So you're not going around sipping pee though.
No, no. It's just I got.
Yeah.
Um.
I have a question for you. You know
Yeah.
what? I'm not gonna do it. In as quick as answer as possible, because this
Okay.
does need to be a thing. And if you don't know the answer, you don't know the answer. Is sweat and urine the same thing?
Technically, all your body fluids are the same thing, right?
Okay, that's
Like,
what I'm asking you. I don't know. I heard about it and I had got into an argument, so I don't want to bring it into here. But that's why. So you're saying
okay,
yes?
what side of the argument are you on?
No, no, irrelevance, irrelevant.
I mean, technically all your body's fluids are the same thing. Like I that's if check out my podcast, Vet Med for Idiots by Idiots. I go on a rant about how I hate milk because it's technically modified sweat. Um and yeah, like but all of our fluids are water that we've drank, been absorbed into our system, gone through our bloodstream and gotten to a place somewhere. And then sometimes they get reabsorbed and recirculated. So one of my professors in vet school likes to remind us that your saliva may have just been in your colon.
Fuck. Fuck. This show's over. I wasn't prepared for that. Did you ever heard the thing where when you say the word salivate to somebody,
Mhm.
they start they can't help but salivate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Um,
I just wanted to say
and yeah, no, I mean, I'm now salivating.
that.
So
Okay, okay, cool. All right, let's get this shit back on track. So, we said it earlier. Oh, actually, let's go ahead and can you let everybody know how they could follow you on social media, how they could support you? Oh, and also anything you wanted to shout out, the podcast. Oh, let's talk about the podcast. So you have a podcast called I just had it
vet
written down.
med
I
for
read it. Yeah, yeah,
idiots
yeah.
by
By edits.
idiots.
There it goes. I
I,
underlined
I
it.
think if you type in vet med for idiots, it's the only one that comes up.
Yeah.
Um, it's
Okay.
it's a show where we try to break down veterinary concepts into like an easily digestible way. Recently we had someone who it's an episode that I'm really proud of. They deal with end of life care. And we talk exclusively. Like I also deal in end of life care, but that is their 100% of their job is they just drive around and do euthanasia. Um, we had an episode with a doctor who does exclusively that, and just like why you're doing this, there's no real wrong way to do it and stuff like that, where we can I'm actually trying to use it to like help people make their decisions, because sometimes the hardest part of my job is like I see you maybe for 15 to 30 minutes, right? Like if you come in for an exam, you you may only see me for 10 minutes out of that time. You're talking to my technician or my nurse. And the rest of the time we're doing diagnostics. And everyone has questions after they leave. So what my podcast is hopefully educational. Hopefully you're entertained a little. Uh, we do try to add levity to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, just kind of break down some vet med uh, concepts. Interestingly enough, we also did an episode on leptospirosis, which is a disease transmitted in urine. Rats carry that a lot in their urine. So if you get a rat with leptospirosis, that is what's called zoonotic. So they can give it to you. So if your pet rat, Miguel, pees on your shoulder and they have lepto, they could ruin your kidneys. Yeah.
This is what I'm
Fun
saying. This is
times.
what I'm saying here. Have you heard? I haven't heard anything about this because I've been focusing on something else. But my friend today told me something about mad cow disease
Mhm.
in Texas. Like they found a one person, like a worker, like a farm worker or whatever, that it was transmitted to.
Unlikely,
Yeah,
because you have to
maybe it
like
was a mad cow disease. I don't know. I haven't heard anything about it, so he could be
so
talking shit up his ass.
mad cow is a prion disease, which prions are like proteins that are malformed, and they transmit cows. And
Oh,
I
how about bird
don't
flu? Was it maybe bird flu?
bird flu it may be,
Okay,
because that's all over the place.
I think it
Mad
was bird flu.
cow, don't quote me on this because I don't do large animal. I'm almost positive cows get it when they're eating other cows. So like they were
Like
feeding
sexually?
cows. Yeah, like did you say like
Like
sexually?
sexually? Like eating one cow eating
No,
out
no,
another
no.
cow?
They
No,
weren't
okay.
doing cownalingus.
Oh, that's good. That's one. You got one joke like that, and then you're off of this show.
Like no, like cow cannibalism.
Okay.
Um And so like they eat malformed protein and they get mad cow disease. I'm almost positive that's where it comes from. And so that's why you're not legally allowed to like mix cow feed in with like cow entrails for extra protein and stuff,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you can transmit. So I would, and I don't know, I can look into it and get back to you,
Sure,
because
but the bird flu thing,
I would be curious on both of them.
okay. Yeah, I just
Bird bird flu is all over the place right now, so
okay.
it's just
That's probably that then.
yeah,
We're two
probably.
idiots who have no degrees whatsoever. We were talking over like a Sam's Club slice of pizza this afternoon. He's like, "Did you hear about?" I was like, "No, I didn't hear about that shit." But I do have a vet coming on today, and I can ask him. So then I completely fucking forgot what the thing was. So okay, so vet med for idiots by idiots, and you have a co-host, right?
Yeah, Corey Johnson. He's my good friend. He's kind of there to keep me in check as far as everything goes. He's there to make sure that vets spend a lot of time around other vets. And so sometimes I tell people we speak a different language. And it's not talking down. It's just I don't realize that when I say something, like I would never refer to an X-ray as an X-ray. We call them radiographs. It's just because they technically use radio waves.
Yeah.
So it's like things like that. I'll just be like rads, and Corey will keep me in check and be like, you have to tell them what they're actually called to it. So he's my layman on the show, and just make sure that any guests that we have on are making sure we don't start talking to each other in a different language,
Okay.
right? So making sure we explain it to someone who isn't in veterinary medicine.
Cool.
um,
So
but as far as everything goes on social medias, you can find the show on the Facebook at VetMed for Idiots by Idiots. uh on Instagram, it's VM4I, the number 4IBI. Um, and you can follow me on my personal Twitter, and that's Kent Death Walrus. We don't have a show Twitter. I just post stuff on my personal Twitter because well, we're just not supporting Elon.
yeah,
Um,
I completely understand. I had a Twitter, but that was I got it like 2 or 3 years ago, and then I just stopped posting there because it's just,
yeah, I
it
know.
is what it is. So all right, and I will post all the all your socials and stuff. And then but there was another thing you wanted to talk about, right? You on the
Yeah.
board?
So I recently I'm on the board of a charity now. And so it's called Outcats, CATS, and Underdogs. It's a charity to kind of help raise awareness for less adoptable pets. So, like for example, like black cats are the least adopted pet in America because people associate them with bad luck, witches, because like it's 2024, we should still be associating things with witches, right?
Um,
um so like we want to help get black cats into homes. Pit bulls are another big one. They're great pets, but people have a stigma against them, and because they're seen as an aggressive breed, which isn't really a thing. And we can talk more about that in the future. It's a lot more in depth than that, but that's kind of our uh mission statement. And those socials are Outcats and Underdogs on both Facebook and Instagram. And so that's, yeah, we have our first event. So our first event is actually a punk show in Baltimore, Maryland at the Metro in July.
oh
Um,
yeah, that sounds awesome, man.
yeah, and
Congratulations.
so like yeah, we're gonna it's fun, and like it it gives me a chance to use my degree to do something like beneficial, and like help in a way that I can, right? Like, and there's the world's constantly worse every day. Like you can't you can't turn around without something terrible happening. So to just kind of like feel like I'm doing some good makes me feel better about myself selfishly. So
Yeah. Well, that sounds pretty awesome. I think if I were a cat person, I would get a black cat without a doubt. I think I've just had bad luck with friends who had aggressive cats.
really,
Um, yeah, but like one or two out of like maybe 10, of friends that I know who had really nice cats, maybe one or two of them. But like the two would like scratch, and it's like
yeah.
really a lot. And I got friends who like have scars on their arms from their cats that scratch. So it's like,
Cat cat scratch fever is like a real disease. One of my actually the doctor who came on and did the show about euthanasia actually got hospitalized for cat scratch fever. So that's a real disease that you can get from cat scratches.
oh shit, I
Um,
thought you were gonna say cats get cat scratch fever. You're saying
no,
humans
it's a
get cat scratch
yeah,
fever.
it's
Oh shit, okay.
they have a bacteria that lives on their claws and it can, transmit to you.
Yeah.
I think I, I think the number one human doctor who studies cat scratch fever, I think his dad died of it
Oh
actually.
shit.
So like yeah, like I mean, there's always in science, there's always something like that where it's like this person is really involved in this particular area of science, and it's like, well, like a parent or loved one like passed away or even they had it and so they dedicated their life to researching it and
That's
help
just
better mankind.
that's the same thing that happened with the person who discovered Viagra.
Yeah, they probably
Yeah,
hey,
their dad
their
had problems
dad.
getting boners.
Yeah, they never had a little sister.
Yeah. All right. Wow, you're assuming that the doctor I was talking about was a male. I was saying the doctor was female.
That's true.
Wow. But
That's
I guess the female doctor could still get a female sister. All right.
yes.
This is overboard. Kent, I could talk to you for
Also,
a
I
long
think the
time.
doctor who invented Viagra was a man.
I'm gonna take your word on it. Don't bring reality into my joke, okay, Kent? All right. So Kent is here to confess his sin of never having watched Willard from 1971. We got his story why. Um, let's go ahead and just get started talking about the movie. So, this was directed by Daniel Mann, screenplay by Gilbert Ralston, who also wrote the screenplay for Ben, which is the sequel to Willard. And Ben
Yeah,
is a very important character in this movie coming up. We'll talk
one
about him.
of the most important characters in
Yeah.
the movie,
And for the
actually.
Patreon, he's behind me here on
Yeah,
my screen. And then it was screenplay by Gilbert Ralston from a novel called Ratman's Notebooks by Stephen Gilberts. And that
yeah.
was supposed to be the name of the movie, which I think is so much better than the name Ratman's Notebooks than
It
Willard.
it gives you more of an idea of what it's about, right? Like
Yeah.
Willard could be anything. We know it's about a guy named Willard.
We know
Um,
it's about something named Willard because it could have
yeah,
been a rat named Willard for all we know.
yeah. I mean the poster is just the Senator Kelly standing there with a rat.
I said the same
Uh,
thing. You're getting ahead of me. But yeah, so starring Bruce Davidson as Willard Stiles, I put Senator Kelly from X-Men and literally hundreds of other things. He has almost 300 credits.
oh
Been
yeah,
working
his
for a very long
his
time.
filmography is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And sorry, I spent like most of the first 10 minutes of this movie being like, where is he from? Before I decided to Google it because he looks so much different from what anything that I've seen him in.
Yeah, because
Which
what X-Men was 2000, so 71, 81, 91. Yeah, almost 30 years had
30
passed
years,
from
yeah, later.
yeah.
Um,
Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
And it's also starring Sandra Locke as Joan. She was in Every Which Way But Loose, Outlaw Josie Wales, Sudden Impact. Which she actually had a really contentious relationship with Clint Eastwood, and Clint Eastwood was like a real shit to her. Like they were in a relationship, and I don't know enough about it to go into, but I know that he was a complete dick to her, and some people say was responsible for ending her career and all that.
Yeah.
Um, so I've always never really liked Clint Eastwood, and I'm like, okay, shit is starting to pop up as to why.
Clint Eastwood and I actually share a birthday.
Oh,
So
okay.
like that became something, like when you're 7, you're like, oh,
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
share a birthday with a celebrity.
Yeah.
Um, and it's become like a point of like, I don't know, disgust. Where
Like, oh God, I
I'm
wake
like,
up
oh my
on your
God.
birthday, you're like, is Clint
It's
Eastwood
like,
still alive?
Clint Eastwood's still here.
But I wanted to say that she also was a director in her own right, and she actually ended up. I think she directed 4 movies. One of them, I believe it was her debut movie, was called Rat Boy from 1986, and it's about a kid who literally looks like a rat. Might actually be a rat, but I have never seen it. But his face is like physically deformed, and it is wild. She stars in it as
Oh
well.
my God.
It's
I've seen that movie.
I want to see it. Do you remember anything about it? Because it feels like a fever dream of a movie, just like watching the trailer.
No, like I have to go look it up because I missed that in her filmography.
Yeah, yeah,
But I swear to God, I've seen that movie.
it's wild. I
Um,
want to see that. I sent it to my group chat. And I was like, we need to watch this movie immediately.
yeah, and she also stars in it. How
Yeah, yeah.
crazy.
And then also another really surprising thing that I saw was that Elsa Lancaster was Henrietta Stiles. And for people who are unaware, she is the Bride of Frankenstein herself.
Oh, really?
The original Bride of
From
Frankenstein Universal from 1930, whatever. She was
really?
the Bride of Frankenstein.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, this is like 30 some odd years later.
Yeah.
But yeah, she was also in like Witness for the Prosecution and Mary Poppins. She had a long storied career. And then also starring Ernest Borgnine as Al Martin. He was obviously the star of Marty. He was in Escape from New York. And of course, everybody knows him as Mermaid Man in SpongeBob SquarePants. He's just got one of those voices, that does great for voiceover. He did a lot of voiceover work.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to get to that one. But and he was also in like what, McHale's Navy, um the TV show from
Oh,
like
was
the
he? Okay.
60s. Yeah, he was like the I don't know, I think he was the lead role. I forgot. I didn't write it down. This movie also won an Edgar Award for best screenplay.
Oh, really? I
Um
wasn't aware.
yeah, which is apparently that's like a specifically mystery and horror writing. So it won for 1971, and it was the 11th highest grossing film of 1971. I don't know what
Okay.
else was on that list, but
When did Jaws come
um,
out? 74?
75.
75? Okay.
Yeah, Jaws would have been in 75 the highest grossing film of all time at
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
$100 million.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Um, and then so I think that's it. Let's get started talking about the movie.
Yeah.
So the movie starts with a triumphant, like orchestral score, and almost immediately we see the title card, Willard. We're in a factory where they are producing many things, many manly things, of which I am definitely familiar with, and I'm describing to you right now.
Yeah.
Lots of
Uh,
stuff.
The through this entire movie, like I tried to find like a rundown of the Ratman's notebook because like I just wanted to know what Willard's dad's company produced.
Yeah,
Like there, it's just vague, like pouring metal for the whole like first 5 minutes of opening credits. Um, and like, yeah, it's just like they have a sales department and they have manufacturing, and it's
yeah,
about as deep as they ever get into it.
yeah. Not necessary. My dad, growing up, I mean, his job my whole life was in solder.
Uh-huh.
So they would make not the, fuck. Yeah, soldering iron. Yeah, that it comes on spools, and you would
Yeah.
take this. Yeah, yeah. So they would make that, and I was kind of thinking maybe that was it, but who the fuck knows? But
Maybe.
there was like liquid magma is poured out into a mold, so
Yeah.
they're creating something. I don't know exactly what it is.
Yeah. This movie is filled with like a lot of vague characters and vague things. Like Willard's job is he's just a cashier, like and like there's a whole bunch of like even well we'll get there eventually.
Yeah,
Like
it's definitely generic office work.
yeah, like there's a lot of vagueness to everything in this movie that isn't just Willard and his rats.
Yeah. So outside of the factory, after work, they race through the parking lot to fuck off for the day or the weekend. Willard is walking down the street when he is almost vehicularly manslaughtered by his boss. Uh, was his last name Martin, right?
Martin.
Mr. Martin,
I
yeah,
think it was
Mr.
Al
Martin.
Martin.
Yeah, I'm just gonna call him
Yeah.
Martin. Just he's
Yeah.
just Mr. Martin or Martin. And some sleazeball named Brandt. They throw some paperwork at him that he forgot, and his boss, Martin, demands to have it on his desk by 9 a.m. Monday morning. Already, we could tell like this guy's being a complete dickhead, and Willard is kind of a pushover.
Yeah, and he's definitely bullied. I mean, right from the get-go, and it makes him late for his bus.
Yeah. They drive
So,
off, and Willard misses his bus home.
yeah.
He ends up having to walk home, and as he arrives to this kind of outside, it's like this gorgeous looking manor, like a uh, mansion sort of thing.
I want to
Uh,
say it was a Victorian style home.
yeah.
I
And it's
think
got a lion
that's
statue
like
in
the proper
front.
term. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
And he stomps down the grass that has grown, that's blocking his family name, which is Styles.
Yeah,
He,
showing, house is unkempt. They're not taking care of the lawn.
yeah.
Probably too much work for him and his mother to do.
And actually, so this is the first shot we get of the house. And the house itself, it's actually called the Higgins Verbeck Hirsch Manson in the Windsor Square neighborhood of Los Angeles. So the movies that they've shot there is Willard, they shot Ben there, Witchboard from 1986, Waxwork from 88, and then Elvira, Mistress of the Dark from 1988 as well. Which, if you haven't seen
A classic.
it's pretty good. I enjoyed it a lot. I don't think it's given its dues.
I
Uh,
haven't seen it since I was like 7.
yeah.
Back to why was I watching Elvira, Mistress of the Dark when I was 7 years old?
Dude, Cassandra Peterson is an absolute gem. She's fucking hilarious. She's funny. She's intelligent. Like, if you haven't read, she did an autobiography last year, the year before, and the audiobook, she does the audiobook for it, and the life she's led, and like the shit she's gone through in show business and all that sort of stuff. Like, I think she was a go-go girl at 13 years of age. It's
Oh
something wild
Jesus.
like that. But like, I think she was like one of the main reasons that Halloween became as huge as it is. Like
Really?
the not the movie, the
Yeah.
celebration, the
The
holiday.
holiday.
Yeah, Jesus, can't think of the right word. She is the reason, one of the reasons why Halloween is big, because like she became this huge spokesperson for like Coors Light in the 80s and like all this sort of stuff. And so it was kind of growing a little bit, but then just kind of exploded. And now it's like worldwide, right? And she was
Yeah.
partly responsible for that. So sorry, I don't mean to go off into tangent, but Cassandra Peterson, we need to put some respect on her name, Elvira. Uh, so
I always have time for Cassandra Peterson. I'll pick that book up once I finish The Dark Tower.
yeah. Are you
Um,
doing the whole series?
yeah, I'm on book 5.
Okay. Are you doing audiobook or
Yeah.
okay.
Um, well, okay, so I have the Kindle app, so it like I can read, or it just works better with my lifestyle because I'm always moving a lot. So if I want to like actually read, it'll sync up to the audiobook, and then if I have to drive somewhere in the car, I can like this isn't an ad for Amazon. Like,
No,
let's
it's
move
not.
on.
Fuck him. Yeah. So he enters the home and he walks up to a grandfather clock and moves it forward more than 10 minutes. Never explained this. he does it a couple times, but
Yeah,
also I think to your point about like showing the unkemptness of the house and how it's like it's seen better days. I think that's also a thing where they don't have the money to get it professionally fixed, so they just need to wind it every day or something
wind
like
it by
that.
hand or
Yeah,
something like that. Um, yeah, that clock comes up a few times in the movie too. Like Mr. Martin points out that it's like a really nice clock. It must have been like kind of impressive at the time to have a clock like that. I don't know.
yeah,
It was grandfather clock or something. So
yeah,
maybe it's an antique, I guess. Um, but yeah, so he winds that clock, but then all of his vague family members that never show up again pop up out of nowhere and give him a birthday cake because apparently it's also Willard's 27th birthday today, at the very beginning of this movie.
yeah.
And I wanted to get there because did you want to punch everyone in the room? Like,
They were so excited, but they were beyond like what was necessary for it. And then also they were there more for the mom than for Willard. And the
oh
party was
yeah.
more to celebrate Henrietta than it was to celebrate Willard, which
Well, and then they immediately start gaslighting him. Like that whole scene in that movie, God, Aunt Charlotte is like, Willard's basically an extrovert, but he keeps it all in. And it's like, no, that just means you're an introvert, Aunt Charlotte. Like Willard is, and then they just keep telling him he should be vice president, and he has to go and tell Mr. Martin to make him vice president because it's his fault that they lost the company in the first place. And
yeah,
I was like, Jesus, like, can this guy just have a piece of cake for a minute? Like, all of his family just jumps on him and starts blaming him for like all of their hardships. Like, and it's just, I felt bad for him at that point.
yeah, I think it's yeah, family and friends of Henrietta style and his, but definitely they're like talking, exclaiming, like telling him to put his hat on. Willard hasn't said a word since entering the house. He's
No,
been besieged on all sides by everybody, but hasn't said one word. And then we find out that, what, like you're saying, Willard's boss, Mr. Barton, was invited, much to Willard's dismay. They admonish him for not wanting his boss at his birthday party, that it would be good for his career. One partygoer even says that Willard is basically an extrovert, but it's all on the
yeah,
inside, like you were saying. So Henrietta and the rest of his mom's friends and family members, they nag him about he should be more aggressive, going for the executive job. They say that Mr. Martin stole the business from Willard's father several years before. Some say that Willard should not have let it happen, but Willard asks how he could have stopped it. And it sounds like an argument that they've had many times before. This isn't the first time he's heard it, and it won't be the last. Well, actually, this is the last time probably he's heard it, but it wasn't the first time he heard of it.
they probably had that argument a couple times off camera.
Yeah. So he
Um,
stops off outside to eat his slice of cake. He's emotional and he's like holding back tears. And then we see a huge rat squawking at him and he throws a piece of cake at it. So you were talking about making sure that you feed your rat correctly on a good diet. Does a good diet for rats include cake?
no, you should not be feeding rats cake.
Uh, what do rats eat?
Generally, you can get plenty of rat food at any pet store that you go to. Just you need to make sure you're feeding them properly. Actually, the most common common problem with like pocket pets, anything exotic, small pocket pets like that, is what we call husbandry. So it's improper diet. Just make sure you go to your pet store and find like a balanced rat feed. You can get, they're just come in pellets.
I feel
Um,
like you're ignoring my question because there's something sinister in rat food. What do rats eat? What is in the rat food?
People.
All right, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. All right. You heard it
Rats
first
are
here.
omnivorous, so they're gonna eat similar diet to us. It just needs to be balanced.
Okay.
Um, so yeah. Anyway,
So the rat doesn't run off, and instead it eats the morsel. Willard is happily surprised, even saying happy birthday to it. Later, and
that rat is named Queenie.
right,
It's
Queenie.
important. Yes.
Yeah, I forgot.
This
I
is
forgot.
where Willard starts naming the rats.
What were your rats' names?
Whiskey and Todd.
I could go from Whiskey to Todd. Like if
um,
you have a brother, like two brothers, you give one a cool name and the other is named. If you call one like Rocket and the other one like Mike or something like that, like Rocket's gonna have a cooler life.
yeah, I mean, like, um, so that one was named by a former partner,
Okay.
and it was short for hot toddy. So
Okay.
like,
All
which is a
right.
drink that you make with whiskey and hot water when you're sick.
Okay. I see.
Um,
I see it's coming together now.
yeah. Whiskey was like a blonde rat, so he was whiskey colored.
Blonde rat? What does that mean? Like,
Like he was like a tan rat, I guess would be a better word for it.
okay. Okay, cool.
Like, and
Um,
yeah.
have
Um,
we haven't even talked about like a king rat.
no.
I had this conversation with a friend of the show, Anthony Jerome, I believe before, and I believe if I remember correctly, he wasn't aware of what a king rat is. You know what a king rat is.
No, actually.
Oh, okay. So in New York, there's so many rats, and they're kind of like they can infest a building or something like that. They can, or even in the sewers, right? They live in the sewers, and there's just tons and tons of rats. And so they're like, and I don't think they're these kind of rats. I don't know what kind of rats they are, but the ones that they're talking about, like longer body and longer tail. I don't know if there's a difference,
Uh-huh.
but these rats would be like climbing all over each other to the point where their tails would get intertwined, and you'd have like a dozen
Oh,
rats.
I have heard of that.
Yeah, a dozen
Like,
rats where their tails are just like, almost like fused together because they're just like tied in a knot sort of thing, and that's
yeah.
called a king rat.
And
Um, it's
they probably end up
terrifying.
eating each other.
It
Yeah.
sounds absolutely terrifying.
Oh, ew.
And
Yeah,
just
no.
imagine that coming down like a hallway towards you or something like that, you know?
Actually, I think that was on your first episode with Anthony.
Was it?
Yeah, I
Okay.
want to say that was when you guys, because that sounds vaguely familiar. Um,
Oh, I forgot to mention that Kent is a My Horror Confessional historian.
uh,
He he lists every episode and he catalogs everything that we talk about. Thank you very much for one of maybe two or three listeners. I appreciate that.
I have found a lot of good books through your podcast.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Um, Man, fuck this house. Like,
Oh, Ryan Hasman. Yeah, that was
yeah,
a good one.
Brian
Yeah.
Esmond. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
Fun episode, great book.
Yeah.
Anyway, and on top of that, Max is a regular contributor, and um, well, he gave me one of his books for free once.
Yeah, he does
Anyway,
that. He'll just give away his books for charity, and or he'll just
yeah,
like
that's
put
awesome.
up a link for like all his books and be like, if you donate this money, here's a link. And then I'm like, it's very different from like me who wrote a comic. I'm holding it close to me. I'm like being all greedy about it.
Yeah.
But I did put the comic on the Patreon if anybody's interested. So, but
Oh.
back to this goddamn fucking movie. Let's focus, Ken. So an older Henrietta takes a mechanical chair upstairs. Um, my wife's, and I've already gone off another tangent. My wife's uh, grandmother, her busha in Polish, she had one of these in her house, just riding the chair up. And we also had one at the Catholic school that I went to, and we would get in trouble for riding it down and up because it was for the older parishioners and all that. But it's really fun. We're kids and we're picking this thing up,
It goes like they're so slow
and
though.
it's incredibly slow. Yeah. So she rings a bell to get Willard to come to her bedside, at which point she admonishes him for offending his guests, saying that they're his friends as well. So this feels a little bit like whatever happened to Baby Jane. because like
Yeah.
she's ringing the bell and all that. Like whenever you have that sort of situation or relationship, something's gonna go bad, right?
Well, and like it's more gaslighting again. Like she immediately starts telling him like, "Well, you offended the guests and you really need to talk to Mr. Martin about being vice president." I think she again throws out, "We lost the company because of you." And just like, God, like could this guy like open a present? Like give him like a card or something with $20 in it.
Right.
Like like be a caring parent for once in your life, Henrietta.
So as Martin goes to walk away, she grabs his hand lovingly, but then chastises him for letting the house go into disrepair. Why, she says she even saw some rats in the backyard. She then says, "Sometimes I think you're trying to kill your mother." And then she laughs and it's like very creepily. And then Willard looks at
Yeah.
her for a second and then says, "Good night." You're like, oh, he's definitely thought about it. He's thinking about it right now.
The guy has been nothing but put down since he got home from work
Yeah.
at a job that like threw paperwork at him and told me he has to work over the weekend to do his job. So like I understand where Willard's coming from at this point.
Yeah.
Um anyway,
So the next day in the backyard, Willard is quote unquote dealing with the rats by feeding them and wishing them a good breakfast. His mom again asks about the rats, and he tells her he'll get to them. He knows where their nest is. She wants to call an exterminator, but he says they don't have the money for it. She then brings up Martin again, Mr. Martin again, uh, and she's talking about his job again, but he just ignores her. So
yeah.
he can't, she won't let up.
Was this the next day?
Yes, it was the
Because
next day.
okay, because like I kind of thought it was Monday.
Yeah, I think so. So the next thing is Monday morning. Willard shows up late for work, and Mr. Martin is already waiting for him. Willard apologizes and says that he missed the bus. Mr. Martin chastises Willard in front of the whole office for not getting his work done. He says he even went to the extent of bringing in a temp to help Willard get caught up on the backlog.
Yeah,
So
but Willard mentions he's like, I had some stuff to do at home this morning, and I thought that that was him cutting the lawn and yelling at his mother about rats.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, that's kind of what I thought, and that's why he was late. But they're kind of just vague about the timeline. Um, she also tells Willard, Henrietta tells Willard he should hit the rats with a stick, which really she doesn't understand. Like once you get an infestation of rats, that rats reproduce like ridiculous amounts. Um, and because I'm a veterinarian, uh, I wanted to bring this up for you. Rats have about a 28-day gestation period, and they reach sexual maturity at about 9 weeks. So in about 18 months, a rat colony can reach a population of 1 million.
Jesus
Um,
fucking
so
Christ.
like when they say, breed like rabbits, they really should be saying breed like rats because rats just exponential growth.
Yeah. Which is
Um,
probably what's happening in the sewers of New York and other big cities.
and that's why you have king rats there.
Yeah, King Rats. I realize that I'm probably gaslighting you because the only other time you've heard about that is on my episode, the first episode with Anthony Jerome. So you've heard it twice now. Now you think it's an actual fact when
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go look it up.
it's probably like an urban legend that I heard sometime. But
Eh,
he demands to have a functioning. Mr. Martin demands to have a functioning system in his office. Otherwise, he will fire Willard, despite the promise he made to his mother. And he does this in front of everybody. He just like it's so disrespectful and so demeaning to be like reprimanded in front of your coworkers like this.
yeah, we're less than 20 minutes into this movie at this point, and not a single person has talked to Willard and showed him any kind of kindness or compassion for anything. He's just like constantly being put down. Um, And so, I mean, it's part of his character. You want a sympathetic person who has rat friends. But no one in his life up to this point has shown him any sort of kindness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, so then Willard goes to his desk and we meet Joan Sims. The oh actually did I so it's Bruce Davidson plays Willard Stiles, Sandra Lock plays Joan Sims, Elsa Lancaster plays Henrietta Stiles, and Ernest Borgnine plays Martin. I think I did that, but I
Yeah.
don't know. Okay. So we meet Joan Sims, the temp girl, and she's sitting there and she introduces herself. Willard just looks at her and then back to his work. Then we get this quick transition back to the backyard. Willard is trying to deal with the rats. He isolates them in an empty water fountain and is going to drown them. But then he looks on as the water gets closer and closer, as the rats start to squeak and worry. Just as the water is getting to their feet, Willard changes his mind and he lets them live. And one of them says, looks to say thank you to
Yeah.
Willard. The question for you, wouldn't they just, can I understand a rat can float, but in that situation, I mean, a rat can drown, but in that situation, wouldn't they just have floated with the water?
Um, well, imagine it's how he planned to drown them would be get the water to a certain point and then pull it up, and then they would have gotten tired and drowned.
Okay.
Because yeah, rats can swim.
Yeah.
But nothing can swim forever, right? Well, I
Yeah.
guess fish. Mammals can't swim forever
Yeah.
unless they're aquatic mammals. This is why we don't speak in absolutes. Um, yeah, and there's 5 ways that you're legally allowed to put down an animal, and drowning them is not one of them.
What are they?
Um, oh, I wish I knew it offhand,
Okay.
but hypercapnia, excessive CO2, humane euthanasia, where we use drugs, are the 2 that I know offhand. There's 3 others, obviously, because
Okay.
I said there's 5, but yeah, offhand I don't remember them all. I use one very specific way.
Yeah.
Oh, one is actually uh cervical spinal dislocation, snapping
In
a neck.
conjunction with something else or like
No, like if you're gonna, I mean, you have to like sedate them first,
yeah.
but
Okay.
it's yeah. So yeah, you can legally euthanize like a rat by sedating them and then separating their brainstem from their spinal cord. So
And
I do know that.
that will kill them.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
that shuts off your brain's communication with the rest of your body. Um, Hypercapnia is too much CO2. So like that's where your blood would become acidic at that point. But the most humane way is with anesthetics, like we do in veterinary medicine for the most part. But
What is the like at what point like I know PETA probably is all life all animals or whatever, but and sure, but is there what's the like smallest sort of animal that you've worked on like that is feasible to work on? Like somebody wouldn't bring in a ladybug, right? So like
no,
what's the limitations, you know?
well, I mean, so we can actually um, put fish under anesthetic, like, and so you can do like surgeries on fish. Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Um, so like
What
even
kind of
small
sort of surgery
fish,
would a fish need?
enucleations, eyeball removals.
Oh shit.
It's cool though, because like you take like a powder and you dissolve it in water, and then you put like the fish in there and move it around. And then they
It
fall
just gets
asleep
fucked
and
up.
you, yeah. Well, I mean, like fish get all sorts of injuries, but there might be someone who has like a really expensive fish that they want to do that on. I wouldn't do that. Smallest animal I've worked on, probably a mouse. In undergrad, I was in part of a lab research project where I would uh neuter mice, and for a doctor who was doing some work on prostate cancer.
Okay.
Um, so like that's probably the smallest animal I've worked on.
Okay.
But like I mean, so it's actually really common for marine mammals held in captivity to get cataracts. Um, so
Hmm,
like there's actually just one like board certified ophthalmologist who goes around and does like cataract surgery on marine mammals. And it's kind
really?
of the job I want. I mean, I don't want to do cataract surgery. I can't do surgery anymore anyway. My hands are all fucky, but uh
What if like for a marine biologist, do they have to get in the water to perform the surgery, or do they transport the animal?
they would transport the
Okay,
animal.
cool.
Yeah, but I mean, they would probably. I guess they probably do it at the aquarium, but you'd want a sterile OR, right? Like
Yeah,
operating room. Um,
I,
because
I
like
knew I knew operating room. Okay,
I
please.
I feel okay. It's maybe
Kent, we got to
when
talk
I
about this
listen.
fucking movie. Inside, Henrietta asks Willard if he did it, and in turn, Willard offers her something to nibble on, a carrot. Again, she
Ugh.
asks if he did it. He lies and says that he did, even saying he bashed them with a stick. Henrietta asks him to spare her the details. So,
Uh,
back at the office, there's a party to be had. Joan says she feels Willard should have been invited to the party since his dad founded the company. But this is another thing. There's like you're saying, there's a lot of vagaries, but there's also a lot of like scene transitions. We'll get like two, like 10 seconds at one place, and then immediately we're back at home. One
yeah,
like a minute at the office, and then we're back at home with no sort of transitions there.
and I mean, like I enjoyed the movie, but I feel like a lot got left on the cutting room floor somewhere because like I feel it like you said, there's just a lot. There's very little character development with anyone that's not like Willard or Sandra Locke. Um,
Yeah.
Christ, we barely know anyone's name.
Yeah,
Like, I
and
mean,
we get a little bit about Mr. Martin. Like, so the cast is this is a pretty big cast, but really the four players are the ones that we've already talked about.
yeah, and that's like the only ones who really have speaking roles.
Right, exactly. And it's a fairly short movie. It's an hour 35. So
Yeah,
um, they think they did what they could with the time that they had. But back at home, Willard winds the grandfather clock again. And Charlotte, one of Henrietta's friends, tells Willard that his mom is sick and that she's there to help. Upstairs, Willard asks his mom why she didn't call him. She says that she can't call him every time she's sick. He has to work. She also says that Willard is the only evidence of her struggle with the world. This line, I don't know where the fuck it came from. It's not really indicative of any other line in the movie. It is so thoughtful and like
but it
gut-wrenching. It's like, wow, like I had never
it
heard it put that way before.
it kind of goes hard for like uh like oh my mom's sick. Oh no, you can't leave work every time I'm sick. Like, you're the only evidence of my struggles with the world, Willard. It's like, yeah, it's an eloquent line
Yeah.
for just like the rest of that conversation. I also love this part because Aunt Charlotte is just like trying to force custard on everyone in the house. She's like, "Oh, I made you a custard," and I'm like, "That's what happens whenever someone calls me and they're sick." I'm like, okay, I'll come over and make custard for everyone." Like,
Is,
yeah.
is is that like a Midwestern thing or something?
I have no idea. It's
Okay.
definitely not anywhere that I've lived in the Midwest, and I've lived a few places in the Midwest.
Yeah. So then Willard apologizes for being such a disappointment. She says, "You've always been such a good boy, Willard. It's just that I'm alone here most of the time, and I worry." So you're kind of you start to understand why she is the way she is. I don't remember it right now. I might be in my notes, but I don't remember now if they go into like her relationship with the father. Like, did he pass away a long time ago, and like she's been alone by herself, basically being a single parent. Um, like she owns this big ass house. They don't have any money. She doesn't. have the skills to fix it. She had a boy, so she was hoping that, gender roles being what they were in the 1970s, that he would do some of the work, and he didn't. So like I'm starting to feel a little like she's still not being the best mom, right? But I'm kind of understanding her a little bit here.
There's some psycho vibes
Oh yeah,
with the relationship between Willard and his mother. Psycho, obviously the movie, not the
you're not calling her a psycho. Yeah,
I'm not calling her a psycho.
yeah,
Yeah, like I mean, he is like constantly paying attention to her, and I mean it's never good enough. And yeah, again, back at this point, God, I forgot her name. I keep
Henrietta.
calling her Sandra.
Oh,
That's it.
the girlfriend, Joan.
Joan, thank you. At this point, Joan's the only one who's shown him any kindness at all.
Yeah,
And I mean, yeah.
it's actually like a bit the edible complex. Is it the son that wants to have sex with the mom? I don't know. It's just, there's some sort of incestuous thing there because she's treating him like a husband as opposed to like a child. They're like, or
Yeah. Yeah. And I do believe I'm a animal doctor, not a psychologist, but I do believe that's the edible
yeah,
complex. Yeah, she treats him like a husband, and he, oh, can you do this for me? Can you do that for me?
mhm,
Um, like it's a weird relationship for
yeah.
sure.
So she says he needs a wife to look after him. He goes to kiss her, but before he does, she asks him if he fixed the shingles. So even at that point, when he's like maybe feeling a little close to her and like loving her a little bit and wants to show her some affection, she couldn't help herself and was like, "Did you do this? Did you do that?" And it's like, "Fuck, lady."
No, yeah, I know. It's still like, hey, Willard, like get this work done on the house. And um boss makes him work over the weekend. He gets home, his mom makes him work. Like he has no time to himself.
Yeah. So then she complains about not having her TV, and he says he'll fix it tomorrow. And I was like, she wants a husband, not a son.
Yeah.
But Charlotte takes his mother some food, and he tells her that she's asleep, and he sends the food back. I think maybe that was trying to get at her a little bit, like you don't get any. You've been fucking with me all day. You don't get any dinner, sort of thing.
Oh yeah.
But I really feel for Willard here because I'm a homeowner, and there's so many fucking things on my list of shit that I need to fucking fix. And I got a smallish home as compared to this fucking mansion that they're living in, yeah. I can only imagine. So like there's not enough time in the day to work a full-time job, take care of your mom, and then also like do an upkeep on a mansion. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's a homeowner as well. And I mean, it's just like, yeah, there's always something to do. And yeah, my home's also small, but like it's just
Never
yeah.
ending.
And he works more than full time too. Like he mentions it several times how he's always working evenings and weekends because Mr.
Yeah.
Martin overloads him so much.
Yeah, that's true. So in the backyard, Willard finds that as he feeds and plays with the rats, that he can train them by setting himself in their instincts as a rescuer. The mother rat, Queenie, whose life Willard saved, brings one of her offspring to him. He names the new rat Socrates. Fucking Socrates, man. We'll get to it. We're gonna get there.
So, um, first off, this is kind of how you would train rats. Like Willard is really kind of using some operant conditioning, which is like where he's like, okay, like food, like this is food, and he's getting them to associate food with doing a task, and rewarding them for when they do that, and then taking them away. Also, I thought it was interesting that Socrates has albinism. Um, Most of your like rats are what you'd call a brown rat. And so Queenie Socrates wasn't going to survive in the wild because that's a genetic mutation.
Okay.
So like she I kind of would have been like, hey, take this rat because now you're gonna keep him in your home and he'll probably survive. But like the reason that that trait doesn't necessarily exist in the wild is because they stand out, so they're like prone to predation and whatnot.
Okay.
So like
Like if
they
they're
don't,
running through a field and
yeah,
there's a
like an
hawk or
owl's
something
gonna
like that.
see
Yeah.
them
Okay.
because they have no pigments.
Hmm.
So I just thought that was interesting that they I wonder if that was intended in the book, and I just need to go and read the book.
Hmm.
But I have two more Dark Tower books and Elvira's autobiography to read.
Yeah. You got to
um,
get going, man. This is and
I got so much to do.
yeah. But that's
Um,
very interesting. Yeah, I like that idea. Like she's like, listen, you saved my life. Can you also save my kid's life? And then
yeah,
we will be like your pets or whatever. We'll do stuff for you. Which they end up doing later on.
yeah,
S-
absolutely.
so back inside, Henrietta continuously rings a bell from her bed to get Willard to come to her. He's been trained the same way that Socrates and the rats will be trained. Yeah.
Yep.
So Henrietta asks what he's been doing, and he tells her he was sitting out back. She tells him that he shouldn't do that, that it's not good to sit around and brood so much. It's like he's not brooding, he's trying to get a fucking moment's peace.
Yeah, every time
Yeah.
you go anywhere, Willard, someone's yelling at you to do something for them. So he just needs a break, for Christ's sake.
She then tells him that the pilot light, I'm sorry, she then tells him that the pilot light is out on the heater, and he walks away saying, I'll fix it. So to be fair, he does say that about everything and then doesn't do it. So I understand you have a mounting list of shit that you have to do, but at the same time, maybe do one of them and you can think, I didn't do that, but I did this, that sort of thing.
He got the lawn cut
He did get
and
the
it
lawn cut.
made him late for work, but I assume he got those pay vague cashier job things, paperworks that he had to do
Yeah.
um done. Anyway,
Yeah. So this is what it feels like. Oh, actually, I don't understand. Henrietta then sees Socrates' tail coming out of Willard's pocket, and she's like, what is that? But he tells her it was nothing, and he walks away. That never works on me. If I see something and I say, what is that? And you say it was nothing and you walk away, I'm going to continue to ask you what the fuck that was. That
well,
looked like a tail in your pocket.
in his turning around and just like tucking it in and then turning back around and being like, oh, it was nothing. You clearly hid that, Willard.
Yeah,
Like you didn't even try.
yeah.
Yeah.
So out back, the rats are multiplying, like you were saying. They were left alone to be fruitful and multiply, and that's exactly what they did. And he's training them. He finds a rat that can ring a bell, and he names him Ben. As I said, Ben is my background image here. So then we get a training montage, which I always love to see a montage of any kind. And then at work, Willard walks in on Mr. Martin canoodling with I believe it's his secretary.
Yeah.
And he tells Joan, so Willard tells Joan that he's glad that she's not like some people around here, indicating the secretary. In Mr. Martin's office, Mr. Martin tells Willard that he was just doing the old broad a favor, it was really just disgusting behavior to talk about her
Yeah.
like that.
No, Mr. Martin's a piece of shit.
Yeah. But he's charming. He's like he can be a piece of shit like he is right now, like just disgusting. But when
Yeah.
he wants to be charming, when he wants his way, he can talk to Willard in a way where you're like kind of like, oh yeah, he's not so bad. No, that's just him being, manipulative, right?
No, no,
But he
absolutely.
can turn on the charm when he wants to.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Willard picked the perfect time to walk into his office too. Uh, mainly because he totally had it planned out to ask him for a raise while Mr. Martin's there cheating on his wife
Yeah.
openly. Like, I mean, it's the 70s. Like everyone, you couldn't uh Yeah. I think 1976 women could have a bank account without their husband's permission. So
Yeah,
like divorce was very difficult. And you also had to prove it like that. But like you're not even hiding it. Like it's just really, really entitled behavior.
also like to do that at work, like when
Yeah,
you're the
no,
boss, there's a power dynamic. There's just so much stuff
there's
that's cheating. I'm sure she was married as well, like it's like,
there's so
eh,
many things wrong with this scene.
yeah. So then
But
Mr. Martin asks Willard if he's happy there at the company. And like you were saying, Willard says he might be if he made some more money. So this is where Mr. Martin realizes that Willard is putting the squeeze on him. Martin
excellent
says,
time.
yeah, he says, "What do you want from me? If you need money, sell your house." Like, fuck you, dude. Could you imagine going to your boss, like, or for when it's time for your annual raise or whatever, and your boss is like, "Listen, hey, budget's tight. You can't give you a raise this year, but you know what you could do is sell your
Just sell
house."
your home. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
And um yeah, I mean he tells him to sell the home, but then like this is also where he starts like it almost seems to an extent like Willard's also his secretary because they keep referring to him as a cashier. Um, but Mr. Martin asks Willard if he sent out the secretary. I think executive assistant is the proper term. Um,
I'm not
but
sure.
I don't know. Um, but yeah, he's like, "Did you send out the invitations to my party?" And he's like, "Yeah, like probably." And he's like, "Dude, like what is Willard's job? Like it just seems to be whatever Mr. Martin wants him to do. Like
Yeah.
he pays him shit and does everything for him. Like
And then again, he yells at Willard in front of everybody because Willard doesn't remember if he sent out or when he sent out the invitations. So to this big party that Mr. Martin is having, that Willard is not invited to.
of course.
Yeah. So he says in front of everybody, he says, "I carried your father for years, and now I'm carrying you." Willard walks away, and Joan tries to talk to him, but he moves away from her quickly. Out on the factory floor, Willard is agitated, and he's looking at all that manly work that's happening. But like the way Mr. Martin brings up his dad, I'm like, dude, it's on sight at that point. Like, Willard, you gotta stand up for yourself. Do something, man. Like you guys are already like in dire financial situation. Like losing a job and getting another job, I'm sure won't affect you that much.
I mean,
Although
he
his
can.
mom might like die if he were to not be at the factory anymore.
Yeah, well, and she probably takes up most of his money with her health care anyway.
Yeah,
Because she's in pretty dire straits. Seems
yeah.
like.
So at night, Willard and his black duffel bags are outside of Mr. Martin's house. Inside, the guests are having a great time. In the yard, Willard releases his rats. So he opens up the black duffel bags, which contain the rats. He releases his rats and says, "Food, food." So all these rats go out and like terrorize this dinner party, this cocktail party that Mr. Martin is having. I absolutely love this scene. What'd you think?
Oh yeah, this was one of my favorite parts of the whole movie. Like Willard is so done with Mr. Martin at this point, and the first thing he can think of to do with his army of rats is to just ruin his party, which totally works and good for Willard. Like the first time he has a W in this entire movie.
Yeah. So essentially, Willard has learned that through Socrates, he can order the others in the pack to do his bidding, except for the mischievous Ben, who occasionally disorders, and we'll get to that. I'm sorry, who occasionally disobeys, and we'll get to that. Also, what is a group of rats? Is it called a pack?
Offhand, I don't know.
Okay.
Um,
Because I had it here as Rat Pack, but I'm not. That
I
was just being a dumb joke.
I do think that it is called a pack, but we're just going to colony.
A colony. Okay, cool.
Yeah, pack works as well.
Yeah.
Ooh,
So
you can also call them a plague of rats.
that sounds more likely what I like. So I want to do this the next time I'm not invited to a party. Is just like release a shit ton of rats. But the guests see the rats and all hell breaks loose. The rats get all over their shoes and onto the food. Mr. Martin takes a chair to the food station. Uh, a bit of an exaggeration, I would think. Like you're not going to be killing a lot of rats with like a chair. I don't know. But Willard then squeaks and calls his minions back to him. And he says, Happy anniversary. The next day, Brandt is recalling the story at the office and says he should have seen the boss, which Mr. Martin overhears and comes out of his office. He then, oh, that's another reason why Mr. Martin is a piece of shit. He uses the F slur
Yeah,
by
he
Brandt's
gets.
reaction to the rats.
Yeah, that was uncomfortable.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, yeah, it's definitely 1971.
Yeah, of
But in his
course.
office, Martin gets a call letting him know that, I'm sorry, in his office, Mr. Martin gets a call letting him know that Henrietta Stiles has died. And I'm not sure if you saw this, but on his desk, there's a placard that reads, Do unto others before they do unto you.
Really? No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, and that perfectly sums up Mr. Martin. That's his whole personality is do unto others before they do unto you. He then tells Willard that he needs to go home. At home, he walks in on Charlotte. Was it Aunt Charlotte
Yeah, I
or
think it's
okay,
his
yeah,
aunt.
rummaging through their china cabinet. She's shocked to see Willard. I was like, why are you shocked? Like, his mom's dead. You
It's his
called his
house.
office to let him know it is his office. So, like, you're not slick. Like, why were you so shocked? But that she was trying to steal from a dead woman.
Yeah,
He,
no, his well, Aunt Charlotte just is always awful.
yeah.
Uh,
So he
keep
asks
going.
what's wrong with mother, but she doesn't answer him. He goes to her room, but she's not there. He asks where she is, and she says that they took her away. He asks what hospital, and Charlotte says that she died in her arms this morning. Her last words were for Charlotte to take care of Willard, which I don't buy for a fucking second.
No, 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 no.
Maybe, maybe not, but I think that's more her trying to insert herself into Willard's life.
I felt like a lot of her actions from here on out are trying to, well, like you said, I think she wanted to move into the house and just take Henrietta's role.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So Willard looks around and he's like, they took her body. What right do you have to move her body without my say so? And she says that they tried to reach him. And again, he asks where she is. And she says that the body, well, she says in heaven, dear, and that the body is with Mr. Farley. It's like, I don't need your fucking slick mouth. Just tell me where the fucking body was. Do you know that's what I meant? I'm not talking about her soul, her quote unquote soul or anything. So Charlotte tells Willard that she loved him and that his mom loved him. And he says that he knows. He says, You don't need to say it over and over. She keeps talking about how much is left to do now. After this, uh, after this is over, she says, Take a week off to decide what to do with your life. Willard, without looking at her, tells her to get out. He says, Leave me alone. I'll take care of my mother. He almost practically, like physically throws her out. And from
And good
inside, sorry, go ahead.
good for him.
Yeah, he's finally
You're
standing up for himself here.
starting to stand up for himself. Yeah, like come on. Like it's just nice to see. Because up until this point, he's been bullied like the whole movie.
Yeah, and essentially like it's basically like it's over now. Like my
Yeah.
whole life, like he was loyal to his mom, for better or worse, probably for worse, right? But like he was by her side until she died, and now he's done with all familial obligations. He is going to live his life now,
Yeah,
which I thought was cool.
absolutely.
So inside, he hides her photographs in her room. He draws the curtains and lays down in her bed. But he doesn't stay there very long. He gets up and pulls Socrates out of his pocket and says, "Come on, we got a lot to do." After the funeral, Willard learns that his mother left him no money and a heavily mortgaged house, and also an insurance check for $1,500.
I plugged that into the CPI calculator. That's about 12 grand.
Okay, 12 grand. That's not bad.
No,
I
I mean,
mean, you could do something with it. I mean, he does something with it as we find out pretty
yeah,
quickly here. But Mr. Martin and Oh, I'm sorry. So Mr. Martin and Henrietta's friends and family arrive with food after the funeral. Willard again winds the clock as Mr. Martin tries to get his grubby hands on it, and he tells Willard to call him if he has money problems. So right away he's like swooping in to
yeah,
try to see if he can get a deal or something like that. He's like he screwed the father out of the business, and now he wants to screw the son out of the house.
yeah, for sure. He's just trying to take over everything. The wake too, like when they're all eating food, all the people are acting very rat-like. So like they're just
Stuffing their
swarming the food,
faces.
stuffing their faces, like,
That's a great point. Yeah.
and there's anytime food is like Martin Willard goes up to his mom and he's like, "Do you want a little nibble?" Like holds her a carrot. He's acting kind of rat like there too. I thought they were kind of just all supposed to seem like rats around food, but I just thought that was interesting. Martin brings up the clock too, because apparently that clock must have been worth some sort of money.
Yeah. As you're saying, Mr. Martin stuffs his face and he's laughing and saying, "It's just like a picnic." And everybody else laughs and eats sandwiches. And one partier is shoving a sandwich in Willard's face, like trying to get him to eat, which Willard kind of shoves away. Looks
Yeah.
like these people don't regard Willard as anything. It's just like he
No.
has no um agency. Like everybody knows what's best for Willard other than Willard himself. I know what's best for you. I will take care of you now that your mom's gone. I know what's best for you. You need to eat right now. I know what's best for you. You need to sell this house. Yeah, I think they did a pretty good job of you could understand how a person can do what they did based on how they're being treated.
Yeah, for sure. But
S-
moving forward,
Yeah. So sometime later, Willard, along with Socrates, uh, I'm sorry, sometime later, Willard moves Socrates along with the other rats from outside into the cellar, and he's surprised to see Ben there. He's like, "Oh, basically, how'd you get in here?" But Willard even cuts a hole in the screen for them to enter from outside. He's even added a plank for them to safely manage it. At the same time, Aunt Charlotte has gotten into the house with some keys that his mom gave her. Oh, that's right. This is where he kind of confronts her again. He's like, "How'd you get in here?" She says that she had the keys. He demands them back. He chases her out of the house and says that you are not my mother. I don't want you coming here anymore. He says he doesn't want her advice about the house and he can take care of himself. And I thought, go Willard. Like I was so proud of him. He demands
yeah.
the keys again and she throws them at him.
Well, like she's like, your mother gave them to me. And it's like, I don't fucking care. Like, they're my keys now. This is now my house. Like that's kind of what Willard's going through. And she left him that house. She has no right to those keys. And again, he finally starts standing up for himself in these scenes, which is nice to see.
Yeah. So back inside, Willard gets Socrates from the cellar, but yells at Ben to get back and stay down there. But Ben is not listening. I kind of like Ben. I really like Ben a lot.
He was apparently very popular because he got a spin-off movie of his own.
Yeah, I wanted to see it for the show, but I didn't get a chance to
Yeah,
watch
I
it.
didn't get a chance to watch it either.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So later at night in his room, Willard gives Socrates an ashtray to use as a washroom. He then sees that Ben has made his way back to his room from the cellar. He tells Socrates that he's bringing him to the office tomorrow since it's Saturday and no one will be there. In the morning, Willard buys a car, and at work, he leaves Socrates and Ben in a storage room that only he uses. At this point, I forgot, maybe I didn't write it down, but Ben was kind of just along for the ride, right? Like he
yeah.
wanted to take Socrates, but Ben was always there and is kind of disobeying him. And so he's like, just to not have to deal with it, he's like, okay, you can go too, sort of thing.
Ben and Socrates seem to be like a bonded pair.
Uh,
So that's kind of was my take on it is like, Socrates is almost um uh like Ben's comfort animal
and,
or
and
vice versa.
and Willard is kind of not acknowledging that and taking
Yeah.
separating them. And Ben's like, what are you doing? I
Yeah, no,
also go
like
here.
yeah, I'm coming along for the ride. I'm going with Socrates. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was my take on it at least.
Okay. So after buying the car, he's at work. He tells Joan about his new car. Well, it says almost new anyway. He says he would take her home, but he has a shit ton of work to do, so she leaves, offering him good luck. Now, by himself, he has Socrates and Ben on the desk with him. Later, Joan comes back saying she has a surprise for him in his car. Ben had to quickly hide the rats, but he does so successfully. They walk out to his car where he finds a cat named Chloe. What did you think when you saw the cat? Like I was like, this is obvious, but at the same time, I didn't see it happening.
Never give people a live animal like as a
As a
present.
gift. Yeah.
Yeah, like because I think it's 80% of them will end up in shelters.
Hmm.
Like because it's nice to have a pet around after like a loss because they can help like with comfort and everything. But like yeah, like people don't realize they're 14, 15-year commitments. Also, Chloe is most likely a boy. 80% of orange cats are male.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, because it's a it's a recessive trait. So like with sex associated recessive, so it's on the X chromosome. So females need to have both of they're called alleles, the gene. Um, Both need to be for orange. So I've only actually ever seen three, maybe four female orange cats in my entire 10 years.
Okay. See, this
So
is the reason why I had you on. See, you don't get this kind of stuff at Pod Mortem, people. You get this at My Horror Confessional and only here. I am,
yeah.
however, wearing a Pod Mortem hat.
Hey,
So we love
we
Pod
can
Mortem.
we can still support Pod Mortem.
Yeah.
It's just I came with the science.
Yeah. Thanks. I appreciate that. So Joan says that she couldn't stand the idea of him being alone in the house. And at this point, she asks to see his house, but he says it's too messy. And then Chloe is kind of sniffing at the bag that contains Ben and Socrates as they drive to his house. He does find a note on his door that they're going to sell his house for taxes. And she says, her reaction to this, she says, that's a shame. Like, really? That's what you tell somebody who's
Yeah,
like going to be homeless? That's a shame.
they
Not
bring
really
up
the
that
response.
it's $2,500 and that would equate to about 20K. Again, plugged it into the CPI uh calculator on some government website.
Yeah,
Just to
that's
give
a
you an
lot of money.
idea.
That's not a
It's a
scratch.
No, it's not. I mean, and he spent 1,500 on a car, so
Yeah. So he takes Joan home, and Chloe is meowing the whole time. And she asks what he's going to do. He says he doesn't know. He doesn't have $2,500. So she says she wishes she could just give it to him and gives him a kiss on the cheek. Joan says to take care of Chloe, and he says, "Oh, I'll take care of her, all right." And I was like, "Ooh, I didn't like the sound of that." But do you remember what happens here?
Oh my God. I absolutely thought that this was the funniest part of the movie because he just goes up to a guy in the payphone and he's like, "Will you hold this?" and hands him a live cat and just pieces out. So,
He
like,
drives off, and we just said to not give live animals to people as gifts, and he
yeah,
goes and does it.
he gives it to a random dude who's just trying to make a phone call.
Yeah.
And I mean, Chloe definitely would have eaten the crap out of all those rats in his basement, but
Yeah.
like there's probably a better way to get rid of Chloe.
So back at home, Willard is frustrated at the rats. He says, "Every time I come down here, there's more of you." He's like, "I'm the boss. Now stop it." And the cellar is packed with rats now everywhere you look. He feeds them and tells them that this may be the last time because he's out of money. He goes to see Charlotte, who is thrilled that he's come to apologize. She sees the new car that he's bought. He then asks her for money for the taxes on the house. She is aghast that he came to ask for money and not to apologize, uh, which he does have some balls. Like the last time you saw this woman, you kicked her out of the house and basically read her for filth, and then you're going to ask her for money.
Well, I mean,
He's
his
desperate.
mom kind of dicked him over. I mean, she left him $1,500. She clearly he wasn't the one that was paying the taxes on the house, or he wouldn't be in this situation. Like it completely blindsided him. So I assume it had to have been Henrietta that was, paying all these taxes and
Or
she
not
just
paying them.
didn't do it. Yeah, not paying him. So, I mean, hopefully you would hope someone in your family could help bail you out when your mom completely screws you over. Your mom
Yeah.
who you've been doting upon for like the first hour of this entire movie.
Yeah. And he is basically ass out of luck. So then he goes to see Mr. Farley at the funeral home, but he's told no as well. Mr. Farley believes that he should sell the house and not get into more debt, which honestly at this point is probably a better idea, but Willard isn't having it. At this point, like he has this newfound freedom and he wants to show what I'm saying, what I think is that he wants to show everybody that he could do it on his own, by himself, sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it it sounds like even if he sold the house, I'm not sure how much money he's getting back because they said it was heavily mortgaged.
Right, right, yeah.
So yeah, like he might end up being homeless if he sells the house.
So back at
Yeah,
the office, yeah, but if he's homeless, what is he going to do with all those rats? What are they going to go now? He's got children to think of.
he can go into the sewer and live like a rat king.
He'll be a rat man. Yeah. So at the office, Joan asks if he's had any luck finding the money. Mr. Martin tells his secretary, Alice, to drop a check for $8,000 for a client that's going to Europe tomorrow. Half cashier checks, half cash, all $100 bills. Did you happen to look up how much $8,000 was?
63K adjusted for inflation.
$63,000 to go on vacation
Well,
is
he's getting
wild.
half of it in hundreds. So he's taking about like what? That's like $31,500 in cash walking around.
Yeah,
Like that's nuts.
it's nuts. So Mr. Martin is being kind of a blowhard here. He's laughing out loud. He's drinking alcohol like they're at a club. Alice says, "Imagine spending $8,000 on a vacation." Willard, having access to the client's addresses, makes a plan to rob his house. At night, he turns the power to the house off from the outside and he enters. So here's the thing. I I don't know if it's if that's how houses are built anymore. But my house is also built with the power outside. Some power, not all the power, but you have access to some of the power, like being able to shut it off from inside from outside. And I always thought that was really weird. Then when I saw it here, I was like, okay, there's other houses like that as well.
It's got to be older houses. I've never
Yeah, yeah.
seen no house I've lived in has had yeah, has had that.
Yeah, this my house is built in 72 and this movie was 71, but the house is like from the 30s or 20s. So, but
Yeah, I
okay.
was gonna say, being a slasher fan, you'd think you'd insist on your fuse box being on the inside of your
I got a
house.
lock on it. I got a lock on it.
Okay.
And it is very minimal what it is. It controls like the pool pump, the air conditioning unit, and one room, but which is like an offset. My house is a Frankenstein house. Like they built upon it and built upon it and built upon it.
Okay, okay.
So he enters, but the client's wife kind of hears scratching, and Willard is using the rats to chew through things that he needs access to. When she goes to look, he tells them to stop. So they're like at his command, right? Whatever he says to do,
Yeah.
they'll do. She goes back to bed, and he tells them to start up again. This time, the client, who I believe the name is Spencer, opens the door to the bedroom and sees a mass of rats and yells for his wife to run. And do they run? They run down the street, and Willard takes the opportunity to take all of the cash. But like this dude ran out of the house before, like his wife was an afterthought. He's looking behind him, like, run, make sure you're okay.
Yeah, he totally just abandoned his wife. For I mean, it's a lot of rats. I get it, but I don't know. If rats could eat you up pretty quick, so
Yeah.
that's fair.
So the next day, Martin shows up at Willard's house with Brant, one of his coworkers. They're there to get the house from Willard. They try to enter, but the house is locked up tight. They walk around the side to the back, and we see Willard kind of poke his head out of the window, but Martin and Brant don't see that. Mr. Martin is basically telling Brant what his plans are for the house. He says he wants to bulldoze the house and put up apartments. Brant asks what if Willard won't sell, and then Mr. Martin says he'll sell if he's unemployed. So that's his
Plans
plan
on
to kind
firing them.
of, yeah, plans on
Back to
firing him.
the vagueness of this movie, though. Like, what is so special about this land that he needs? There's no land that you can build apartments on and anywhere else in this town.
Well,
Like,
it's probably that he could get it for cheap, but
yeah,
but I
maybe.
agree, it's not motivations aren't clear.
It's just like I said, there's just a lot of that every now and again. Like,
Yeah.
and where's Willard gonna explain this $4,000 he got to the IRS? Because they're gonna probably want to know how he's paying off his taxes. Anyway,
So inside, we see a newspaper headline that says "Rats as big as a man." I thought this was going to come back, but it doesn't,
no,
so that's fine. But Willard again yells at Ben for being in the bedroom when he's not supposed to be. He's like always yelling at Ben. He's like his mom. You know how his mom wouldn't cut him a break. He won't cut Ben a break.
yeah, absolutely. No, Ben can't do anything right.
So he grabs Ben and tells him to go to the cellar. He then lays down in bed and immediately sees Ben again in his bed, and he grabs a stick to prod him off the bed. Ben grabs it and bites it. He then swipes at Ben with the stick. I was like, wow, like he's actually fighting with a rat, you know?
I know there's a rat human fight scene in this movie, which I just thought was beautiful.
Yeah. The next day, he finds the stick has been broken and chewed up on the floor by Ben, which I fucking died laughing when I saw that. Willard says that he will take Ben to the office, but if Ben fucks up, it's the last time that he's gonna go. At the office, Mr. Martin, turning on the charm, but being kind of too close to her. I was thinking, back off, dude. He's trying to persuade Joan to get Willard to sell his mansion to him. but she refuses to betray Willard. Basically, he's saying, if you want your job, you have to get Willard to sell me the house. And she's like, no, she's not going to do that. In the meantime, Willard goes to check on Socrates and Ben in the storage room and yells at them for being too loud. Joan is then fired for not playing along, and Willard sees that Mr. Martin has given him a 30-day notice as well. It's a 30-day notice before dismissal as well. So at this point, Alice, the secretary, screams because she went into that storage room and she sees Ben. Mr. Martin, so they all the workers kind of huddle along into that closet, and Mr. Martin attacks Socrates with a stick. This scene was so hard to watch. Like, I don't
Oh
like
yeah.
rats, but I don't want them to be killed or tortured or hurt anyway. And yeah, do you want to describe what we saw?
Well, I mean, like it's a very similar stick to the one that Willard fought Ben with. But back to the point I brought up earlier, like one of the reasons like Socrates gets got and Ben gets away is because Ben has better camouflage. Like so Socrates sticks out in that dark so yeah, he
Oh,
wasn't fit for evolution, and they put Willard in charge of kind of taking care of him, and Willard lets him down. Because yeah.
also, I think there's a bit of like trusting humans thing there with Socrates, where like, he's got this relationship with Willard. Socrates and Willard have this relationship, and so he probably is not as terrified or mistrusting of humans, whereas Ben is like, no, fuck y'all.
Yeah. No. Yeah, Willard has been nothing but trash to Ben. So
Yeah. So he's not going to trust another human. So RIP to Socrates. He does end up dying. There's a lot of blood, more blood than I was anticipating. And I know Mr. Martin gets some blood on him as well. But Socrates' death affects Willard deeply, even though he didn't do anything to save him. Ben just watches as Socrates is murdered. Mr. Martin feels on top of the world, but Willard goes into the bathroom feeling sick. Then Mr. Martin goes in there. He's like, "What's the matter, Tiger? You got a little nervous stomach?" Like completely like talking down to him.
mhm.
And uh, then outside of the bathroom, Alice asks Mr. Martin if he needs her to stay the night, and he says yes. And she was happy, but then he says he needs some private finagling time, so she doesn't stay. So are we to assume that she got so horned up and turned on by seeing Mr. Martin like
Kill
kill a
it.
rat that she wants to like fuck him? That's
that
essentially what they're saying, right?
that rat couldn't have weighed more than like, a couple ounces at best. Like you need a gram scale to weigh a rat. So
Yeah,
yeah, like it's really not that manly of a thing, Mr. Martin and Alice.
yeah.
But yeah, no, that's what happened.
So, but he says he needs to, basically needs some time to himself to work on some shit. So at this point, Willard is talking to Ben, and he tells him that there wasn't anything he could do, but Ben just stares at him accusingly. Willard begs Ben to get in the bag, otherwise they're going to kill him as well. And begrudgingly, Ben goes into the bag.
Have you ever seen Orca?
Uh, well, long ass time ago.
There's just a lot of scenes in Orca. This just reminded me of that because it's almost like Willard and Ben are having an argument. Because
Yeah,
like,
that's exactly what's going on.
yeah, I mean, like, there's a lot of scenes like that in Orca too, where the original Dumbledore and an Orca are like menacingly staring each other down. But I just love like Willard is actually like talking to Ben, and Ben was able to say it all with his expression.
I
He's
mean,
like,
look at this expression
yeah,
behind me.
yeah,
It's just like
no,
amazing. It's
yeah, no,
amazing.
it's great. Like, I
But
absolutely loved that. Like, because Willard was responding to his expression, and you really got. I mean, I actually think Ben won an award for like animals in acting that year too. Now that I think about it,
You just made that
um,
shit up.
no, I'm pretty sure that
Okay.
happened.
Okay.
Uh,
Um, so Willard takes him home, and there he speaks to his late mother's photograph. He says, "Why didn't you tell me you owe taxes? You wanted me to talk to Mr. Martin about my future. Well, he wants to knock the house down and fire me. And he killed Socrates, just like he killed my father." So this is an important line. I think he is not saying that Mr. Martin literally killed his father, but just probably like because his dad lost the business to him, that killed him. Is that what you take from it?
I don't know if Mr. Martin took the business over before or after his death. Because like the original conversation at Willard's birthday party made it sound like, but no, I never got that like Martin like
Physically killed him or anything like this. Yeah.
physically killed him. Like maybe just the stress of having Martin around, and he probably smells like cheap cologne and body odor.
Yeah.
So like yeah,
He's
like
one of
maybe
those
that
guys.
just
He's one of those guys who could afford like really good cologne but doesn't buy it because he's cheap. So that's why he's got the cheap cologne. Yeah.
yeah, like it would be the equivalent of someone today wearing too much X body spray. Is what that's how I imagine he smells.
Yeah. But then he goes on to say, "Don't worry, I make the decisions now." That night, Willard takes hundreds of rats to Mr. Martin's office. Mr. Martin hears something at his office door and opens it. He then sees Willard there and then notices all the rats. Willard says, "Yes, look at all the rats. Not just one anymore. We've come to talk to you." Mr. Martin says, "Are you crazy?" And Willard says, "They do anything I tell them to." This is where Mr. Martin realizes that he says, "You're the one who ruined my party." Willard says, "Don't move. They're just waiting for us to finish our talk. The rats have infested the office. They're everywhere you look, they're there." And it was funny because I read that Ernest Borgnine was terrified of rats and needed to overcome this fear in order to do the movie.
Maybe after he got over his fear of rats to do this movie, he ended up having some as pets. I hear that that's very common with people who used to be afraid of rats.
Really,
Yeah.
I don't see it, but sure, I love that for him. Then so Willard snaps at Mr. Martin to sit down. Willard is a really different person right now. He has all the power, and while he may not be um, doing the best with it, it's cool to see him in some sort of power relationship, power
He
dynamic.
has a literal army of rats doing his bidding. And
Yeah,
we don't know how long it's been. They could be up to 1 million by now.
right.
So, yeah.
So he says he has a number of things to say. He says, "You stole the business from my father. That killed my mother. And then the third thing is you're trying to kill me." So it's like, God damn, like when you put it that way, like Mr. Martin has like fucked this family up, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
He goes on to say that you made a fool of me in front of everyone, and now you're trying to steal my house. Um, when Mr. Martin protests, Willard screams, "I heard you. That's why you're firing me. You made me hate myself. Well, I like myself now. You killed my friend. How did Socrates feel when you stuck him with this?" He pokes Martin with the stick, but Martin grabs it from him. He attacks Willard, but Ben falls on his arm and bites him. Willard then opens the door and yells, "Tear him up!" And a terrified Martin begs no, but is assaulted by the rats as he rolls around screaming and trying to get them off of him. He then jumps out of the window to the ground below.
So, like, when they do forensics on this guy, like, there's going to be a bunch of rat bites. Um, like it's just going to be a really weird case for the police. Like, I don't see any detective coming in and being like, well, clearly someone has been training an army of rats to attack humans, and that forced him out the window. But, like, I mean, there's no rats in that building. It seemed pretty clean. Like, you'd need a lot of rats to do the kind of damage they were doing to him. So, I don't
That
know.
it's one of those that would show up an unsolved mystery.
Yeah, definitely
Unsolved
falls
mysteries,
out
yeah.
window with a bunch of rat bites.
Yeah. So at the window, Willard is looking down and he sees Mr. Martin bloodied, surrounded by the rats. This was pretty cool. I like this a lot.
I This rubbed me the wrong way with Willard. Like, we can go on with the script because obviously what happens next is,
Yeah, go ahead if you want to say.
well, yeah. So Willard sees Mr. Martin's death and is like kind of like put off by it. Like, okay, first off, Willard, what did you think was gonna happen? You like told an army of rats to tear him up. And then it's God, what's the line from Futurama? Um oh God, there's something about like, oh, if it wasn't the consequences of my own
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
actions.
yeah, yeah.
Something like that. Like, it's a very that moment for Willard right now. And so like he goes back home, he has all his rats and he feeds them. But I'll let you finish up because this is probably the last bit of the script, and then we'll talk more about it
Yeah,
because we're coming to the end of the movie.
yeah. So, so he goes back home. Well, first of all, backing up a little bit. Ben was kind of looking at Willard for approval, but Willard just locks the rat in the office and he says, "Goodbye, Ben." And so he leaves Ben at the office, then goes home to close all the entrances to the rats and kills the rats remaining in their cages by drowning them in his home pond. That was so cold-blooded. Like
Yeah.
you made the decision. These rats, they're just animals who you trained to do exactly what you told them to do, and then you murdered them. You just murdered hundreds of them because they did successfully what you told them to do.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
now you're having second guess or
and now
feelings about
you're all mad at your rats because they did exactly what you told them
it.
to.
Yeah.
Um, it's common among veterinarians to have the conversation about, if we were to die in our home, how fast would our pets eat us?
Yeah.
The answer with rats is pretty quick. I figure Mutie probably about 15 minutes before she turns to eating me. But also, like, if someone were to kill our pets, like, in the heat of the moment, what would you do? And I'm like, I'm very hesitant to spend the rest of my life in prison, but it's Willard. Socrates was the only person who has shown him any kindness, only person, only thing that has shown him any kindness, and he got to watch it get brutally murdered. And so, like, yeah, heat of the moment, he made a poor decision, and now he's making all of these animals pay for it. And it just, um, like, I mean, that's still on you, Willard. Like, Mr. Martin's dead because of what you did.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like, well, that's it.
So in the
It's
backyard, we also see that Willard is covering up a dirt patch, which is implied that he's buried Mr. Martin here.
Yeah,
The next day, the police have arrived and have arrived at the office and are photographing the chalk outline of Mr. Martin's body. Willard goes out with Joan, saying that there are two people who changed his life, his friend Socrates and her. She asks where Chloe is, and he says that she's hunting. Willard wants to begin over tomorrow and find a new job. He says he's not afraid anymore, but then he notices Ben staring at him. Joan looks where he was looking and didn't see anything. Willard looks in the cellar and sees that his mansion has again been invaded by the rats. So he has to put her in a taxi, basically kicking her out because she doesn't know what the hell's happening. It In the kitchen, Ben bites Willard, who was pointing at him, and he's basically trying to make a deal with him, but Ben turns his back to him. Willard tries to trick Ben into eating poison. And I kind of love the camera movement going from the table where Ben is to the sink and back. And you're kind of like seeing like you see that Ben is gone, right? Willard
No, for
notices
sure.
that he's gone, and then Ben realizes the trick and calls for reinforcements. Willard tries to attack him with a broom. He encloses himself in the cellar. And at this point, I was like, this felt a little bit like the Night of the Living Dead ending with Ben in the cellar, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
And then he yells out, I was good to you, Ben. But all the rats break through and jump on top of him until he is killed. Then we zoom in on Ben's face. The end. What a fucking ending. Like, I mean, uh, so we're going to talk about what you thought about the movie overall and like ratings and all that sort of stuff. But just this ending, how did you feel about the ending?
I mean, the ending's great. Like Willard kind of gets got there at the end. Like you said, it had a lot of Night of the Living Dead vibes. Um, I mean, I love that Ben kind of outsmarts Willard. Like he tries to poison him. Ben's not having it. Like
Right.
it's actually like whoever wrote this had a lot of respect for rats, in my opinion. And I personally do think rats are really cool, really intelligent animals.
Yeah.
So personally, I really got a kick out of that. Like you could tell that this was written by someone who has a healthy fear of rats, but also a great deal of respect. Um, yeah, so I mean, the ending's great.
Yeah.
Like, that's my thing.
Yeah, I really enjoyed like, I'm sad for Willard. He didn't really have a chance. He never stood a chance in life. He was just like unlucky. He got his break with his mom passing away. That was his out, and then it just didn't work out for him.
Well, but even the line, like, I was good to you, Ben. Like,
He wasn't.
no, you weren't.
Yeah.
No, you weren't. And like you already brought up how like there was that relationship between Ben and Willard was very similar to Willard and his mother, with his mother being a bit of a bully towards him. And you could clearly tell that his mother had some love for him, but there's a bit of maybe an edible complex and some psycho vibes going there. And like, yeah, no, you weren't good to Ben at all. And then, you know, he does what you told him to. Even, we kind of got the glance of looking for approval. And, you tell him, tear him up, and like now you're all afraid of your rats and you kill them all as a result. And so no, like it worked out for you, but when you got power, you did the same thing that the people were doing to you. Like,
Oh
it's
yeah, that's a
and
great point. Yeah.
like so yeah. I mean, it's kind of like a come up and story.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
So, out of so then, what did you think of the whole movie in general? And then we'll go into ratings.
Whole movie in general, probably could have used a couple runs through some editing.
The
Maybe flesh some
transitions and all
things
that.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, transitions, maybe fleshing out some character work, because there's, like I said, there's a lot of vagueness, there's a lot of like real quick cuts. Um all in all, the score I actually really liked, even though it was at the beginning, it seems way too whimsical
I had a
for.
note like that as well. There was a point towards the end where somebody was dying or something like that, and it was like a whimsical score. And it's like I think that's just a holdover from using orchestras, this
Yeah.
string music as opposed to like what
Well,
scores became later on,
it the score almost sounds like the same score that they used in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, like the one from 1971. And I
Okay.
actually looked up to see if it was the same composer, and it's not. The guy who did this, I think his name was Alex North. He was award winning as well. Yeah, music by Alex North, and has a very good filmography and has done a lot of good work. But like I was like, strangely, another movie that came out in 1971 had a very similar score, at least as far as I thought. And I'm just like, was it just like the rules that you had to make all of movies in 1971 have like this whimsical score? It's supposed to be like a sinister movie. And like you said, one guy's dying and it's like, doo, 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 doo. So the
Yeah.
score seemed off at times. It is still a good score. Like I'm not gonna put it down. I enjoyed it. It just seems out of place at times. Um, yeah, some weird editing. All in all, I think what was his name? Bruce Davison
Mhm.
did a really good performance. I mean, it's had to be really, really difficult to have like legitimate conversations with rats. Like trying to, because I mean, you genuinely feel like he's talking to Ben,
Yeah.
like at that scene.
Oh, I agree. Like 100%. This movie rides on Bruce Davison's shoulders.
Yeah.
Like without like the quality of acting that he brings to the role, this movie could be a complete joke. And don't get me wrong, like there's some funny parts of it that's wild, but the con like if somebody were to tell you the concept itself, you would think that's a stupid movie. But the way that they treat this 100% seriously, it's not a joke. It's not played for laughs or anything like that. This is like a serious, you know, they treat it seriously. All the acting is shot seriously. The direct, the way they shoot it, it's serious. So, I think, I think Bruce Davidson did a great job acting. Sandra Locke, for her part, like she didn't have a big role, but she did. Even though that relationship, I have an issue with like love at first sight sort of things. And like
Yeah.
she has no reason to like this man. Like he's not like actively pursuing her romantically or anything like that. She just sees him, and because he needs a romantic interest, that's what she's there. She's there for
Yeah.
that.
She did the best she could given what she had to work with. There is not a lot to her character at all except for being Willard's love interest.
Yeah.
Bruce
Uh
Davidson did actually get like a credit for the remake because apparently they put him in the background in like a painting.
oh,
And
really? That's cool.
yeah, like and they had
I
it
saw the remake a couple years back in theater. Not when it first came out, but at a retrospective or whatever. They played it again, and it was pretty decent. I don't
I'm going to
recall.
go see the remake.
Yeah,
Or I'm going to go see it. I'm going to video on demand it because it's not
yeah,
streaming anywhere. But like I would like to see it and just compare them because I'd never seen this one, and I did legitimately enjoy this.
yeah. Well,
Um,
that leads us into ratings then. Let's go ahead and rate this out of five upside down crosses. So for you, Kent, what would you rate Willard from 1971 out of five upside down crosses?
all right, so can I do half a cross as
Yes, you can
well?
do half cross. Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna go 3.5 crosses. So I think it deserves, C plus, B minus range.
Yeah.
So like maybe it's not the best movie from the 70s. And I mean, we've already talked about a few, like, Jaws, The Exorcist, those all came out in the 70s.
Mhm.
There's a lot of good horror in the 70s. This uh it has pacing issues, it has some editing problems, um it some very light characters, so but Bruce Davison does a good job. Henrietta, what was her name again? Elsa Lancaster.
Yeah.
I thought she did a very convincing job. Yeah, and you mentioned Sandra Locke. She did great with what she was given. And so there's good performances. The score, while sometimes out of place, I still think has a lot of positive to it. And there's really only one time that I would really consider it horror, but that last scene with Mr. Martin is kind of legitimately chilling. Because like, he opens the door and there's just Willard standing there with this army of rats behind him, and you
Yeah,
have
great image.
yeah, and I mean like that was just a cool scene. So, you know, would I recommend it? You can watch it once. Uh
If you're a person who loves like creature feature movies or
yeah,
animal movies, then
it's
I would definitely recommend. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Um yeah, but
Okay, I think I'm right there with you. I'm at 3.5 upside down crosses. I enjoyed it for what it was. It was a pretty straightforward movie, which is there's nothing wrong with that. Not every movie needs to be like super involved and stuff like that, or like super twisty and turny. Um, so yeah, I enjoyed it a lot for what it was. Like I said, Bruce Davidson did a great job. Playing it straight. That really helped the movie a lot for me. These rad actors, I mean, Socrates, like I was like sh almost shed a tear for Socrates. Like the movie made me care about a rat, like that's saying something. And Ernest
yeah.
Borgnine was a complete piece of shit in this movie, and I hated him. And that means he did a great job as an actor. So yeah, it's a silly premise,
Ben
but
holds up his side of the conversation with Willard several times.
yeah,
It's
you know
like,
exactly what he's saying.
yeah. And
So yeah, I think 3.5 upside down crosses is perfect there. Uh,
um continue,
I
please.
was just gonna say, were there any final thoughts you had on Willard?
No, I think we kind of covered everything. Like,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, all in all, it was fun. If
Yeah,
you're someone who likes creature features, like you said, it's
yeah.
worth checking out. Or if you're just a big fan of rats, because the rats in this movie do a great job.
So then, my last thing I'll ask you is for a movie in a similar vein to this one. So, what is a movie that you could play on like a double bill?
So, I mean, there's the obvious answer of Ben, which
Uh,
has the theme song written by Michael Jackson, or I think it was the Jackson Five at the time.
mhm.
That's not a joke. It's
No, no, no. I'm familiar. Yeah, I'm aware.
but
So, okay.
since I haven't seen that one, I don't feel like I'm being you know, professionally honest, recommending that. So I'm gonna say the Bone Collector from the early 2000s, because there's actually a very similar rat murder in that movie, which
Oh,
I
okay.
thought was just one of the it's one of my the movie's not great. I'm not that one probably gets three upside down crosses, and um but the rat murder I always thought was a really cool kill.
Okay.
And it's in line with what happens to Mr. Martin here.
Okay. For me, even though I haven't seen it, I definitely want to see it, and I'm gonna go ahead and say Rat Boy from 1986 because as we talked about earlier, it was directed by Sandra Lock, starring Sandra Lock, and I'm gonna be watching that this weekend,
Is
possibly
it
tomorrow.
is it available anywhere on streaming?
Yeah, I think it was available pretty much everywhere when I
Oh,
looked
really?
when I
Yeah,
Googled it.
I'll
Yeah,
go check it out.
yeah,
I'm almost positive I've seen it. When we started talking about it, I looked up the poster. Um, and yeah, I almost positive seen it, but I want to go check and refresh my memory
yeah.
because yeah, like we'll see. Who knows?
All right, Kent, thank you so much for being on the podcast. All the knowledge that you brought was really dope. If you could please let everybody know once again how they could follow you, how they could follow the podcast, how they could follow the work you're doing with the charity or all that sort of stuff.
So our charity is again on any social media site except for Twitter, because
Yeah.
we're not on Twitter right now. Um, is Outcats, with no S. It's Outcasts, but the S in the logo is crossed out. So it's
I
Outcats and Underdogs.
can't. Everybody got it.
Just trying to make sure.
Okay.
Um, you can find us on Facebook or Instagram. I'm available on Instagram as Kent Morton, where I will post things about my show, Vet Med for Idiots by Idiots. We have a social media page for Facebook that is Vet Med for Idiots by Idiots, or on Instagram, VM the number 4BI, or yeah, 4IBI.
Okay.
So
We'll
it's
link it.
that
We'll
one's
link it.
complicated. We'll link it. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
And that's about everything. But yeah, hopefully come on by, and hopefully we can teach you some stuff.
Awesome. And how often do the episodes drop?
We drop Tuesday morning.
Tuesday morning. Okay, cool. Weekly?
Yep, weekly. We're finishing up season 1 now, and then there'll be a break, and then we'll start season 2 in about a month.
Okay, cool.
Season 2 is mostly recorded. It's just finishing it up and yeah,
Getting
whatnot.
it edited and all that. Oh man,
Yeah.
I love being ahead of the game. But all right, Kent, thank you so much again for being on the show. You've been a great guest. I appreciate it. I'd love to have you back on sometime. Uh, Maybe we'll do Ben. No, we won't. We don't, I don't. You don't have to only do animal movies, but
Oh
all right,
no, I love doing an animal movie, like
great.
because like I did get to talk about rat reproduction, and I mean, randomly there's an orange cat in this movie, which I got to drop some science on y'all.
Yeah,
So like
love it. Love
whatever.
to hear it. And everybody, thank you for listening, and we will talk to you next week.
Live spooky, die spooky.